Langata MP Felix Odior alias Jalango found himself on the wrong side of orderlies in the Azimio One Kenya retreat. The Langata lawmaker was roughed up and denied entry into the retreat venue, where other lawmakers were gathered. Attempts by Saboti MP Caleb Amisi and
Stephen Leto is absolutely right. It was quite the rough afternoon for Langata MP Jalango, and it's all to do with breakfast at State House. Of two sets of members of National Assembly, those belonging to ODM, and then a day later, those belonging to the Jubilee Party. Now, what happened, Francis? There were how many? There were 9 from ODM, and there were, what, 30 in total?
Let's separate the issues first.
Yep. Okay.
Number one, there were 9 members of parliament from the Nyanza region. Of course, Jalas is from that region, but representing Langata constituency. 9 of them. They said they had gone to follow up with the president over the development projects that
after his Homa Bay visit,
he promised after his Siaya, Homa Bay, and Kisumu visit.
Yes.
But on the other hand, the party leadership says that was not the case. In fact, they speaking to a few leaders in Azimio and ODM particularly, they're saying this is an attempt to weaken the coalition and to weaken the party. And so today there was a parliamentary group meeting in Machakos County. You realize that a number of Azimio MPs, Jubilee MPs, who attended another breakfast meeting at State House did not go today. They were not in Machakos,
yes.
But we will speak about them a little later.
Yeah.
Let's first dispense with the question of the ODM MPs who went there. I heard Kalonzo Musyoka say Gideon Ochanda, the MP for Bondo, consulted the party leader and told him, hey, we have been invited to State House. But the other MPs apparently did not notify the party leadership about their visit, and that's where the quarrel is coming from. That goes to show you how our democracy works.
Right.
Because in the reverse, in the event that the Azimio leader would have won and a number of UDA MPs went to State House, the same backlash that these ODM MPs are facing would have been the case. That tells you how fluid our political environment is.
Yeah.
Loyalty to the party, how much do you measure loyalty to the party leader, and dispensing the responsibility of that member of parliament?
In fact, Jalango did say in an interview with Spice FM earlier this week, was it yesterday, that he doesn't need the permission of the party to go to State House, and, you know, I think even of, and then the other thing that he said was, the people in his constituency don't care who's president as long as they get the development that he has promised them.
That tells
That's
you
how he defended it.
Absolutely. That tells you the story because here you are as a party leader, you're trying to build your team, but on the other end, your opponent is eating into that support base, into that team, particularly in parliament. Remember, this is an environment of political competition. But at the same time, these members of parliament have a responsibility to their constituents. Their constituents need development, water, and so on and so forth. And the tragedy of our nation is that development is associated with the person in power. That if you're in good
terms... Even
terms...
after devolution.
Yeah. If you're in good terms, let's say with the president, if you're an MCA and you're in good terms with your governor, then your ward, your constituency, your county will get development. And I think this is the challenge with our democracy and our architecture of how things are done. Because once an election is conducted and is done, and you have a president, we have a governor, we have a member of parliament, we have MCAs, then development should be organic in the sense that whichever part of the country you are in, however you voted, you should be assured of development. But the problem with our politics and the problem with our governance is that it is still patronage-based. That if you're in good terms with the leader of the day, then you're at a better place to get development. But also in reverse, if you're elected on this party's ticket and you are seen to associate or to consult or to relate in any way with a leader of a party that was opposing your party leader, then you are deemed to be a traitor. I think that is the challenge with our democracy. It should be such an organic way that once an election is conducted, it doesn't matter. You are assured of development and you can relate with any leader from whichever side, as long as you're not defecting from this party to another party, unofficially so. That is the challenge with our democracy.
Sorry, before you come in, Jamila, let's listen. You talked about being termed a traitor. In fact, Vaila said just that at the Azimio parliamentary group meeting today, saying those who went to meet the president at State House are traitors.
To go and see Mr. President as a person appointed in State House, go. But if you want to go and talk about issues that affect the party, then you must be given permission by the party before you go to see the president. What you see, these people must be seen for what they are, traitors in the cause of a revolution.
But Gideon went there, but he did the decent thing. He said, I've been summoned to State House. He called his party leader.
Any visit, cohabitation, dining, wining with Kenya Kwanza by any member from Jubilee, it is against the position of the party, and it is also against the position of Azimio.
Yeah, and it's no wonder Jalango was thrown out of the meeting. Mwanzo alikatazwa akaingia, but when the party leader came in, akaambiwa ondoka.
Group.
Yeah, just leave. And Yvonne, I think this is not the first time under this administration that we are seeing members of parliament and elected leaders trooping to the government side. Just shortly after elections, even before the swearing in of President William Ruto, he was receiving delegations at his then current home. The UDM party that had really alipata wabunge wengi, I remember at the time, and senators, remember the ones who were independently elected. Several of them went across, including governors, and we saw the results of their moving, of their patronage in the House when they were voting in the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker and all that, because they had the numbers. And it's that whole thing about leadership and control and in this country, and that whoever wins election really calls the shots. And Gachuri really put it very clearly when he said, now you associate now the development, the support, for you to be able to give services to the people, those who elected you, with being in power. And you're in opposition, you're literally out in the cold. So if you're able to associate yourself with power, maybe mambo yako itakuwa mzuri. Because that's the argument that's being used by Jalango and the others who are saying, well, we went there because of we want development. We're still in ODM and family in it. And I think also for Raila Odinga, part of why he's really upset is because of the campaigns he's been doing now, trying to discredit the government of William Ruto, saying that he does not recognize him as president, where he has all these rallies he's been having. He has one, I think, tomorrow in Mavoko.
In Mavoko, another one in Busia,
and then
Kisii.
And
Narok.
So he has this series of rallies in places, we said this last week, that were really maeneo yake, ngome zake, and it really doesn't paint a good picture for him and the support he's trying to get if some of his members of parliament elected under his party are going around and meeting, in his opinion now, the enemy, the side that he does not recognize as president. So the optics are not really good for him. Not just the ODM ones, ODM members, even the Jubilee ones, because they're all under Azimio, that they are trooping to State House. I've not seen Wiper members of parliament doing it. I don't know if it's just a matter of...
Yeah, although Kalonzo said of the ones that were there, they actually did tell the party that they'd been summoned to State House. And it's interesting that you say that. So is this a case of bad political hygiene, or, is this just, people meeting to discuss development in their areas? The following day, when Jubilee MPs made their way to State House for a meeting with the president, one of the ones who was there was Sabina Chege. Sabina Chege is a nominated MP. And I think more than even the elected ones, the nominated ones completely have their allegiance to the party because they've been nominated on that. But on top of that, she's the deputy whip. Where you are required to whip the members on your side in line when it comes to certain types of legislation and one way of voting or the other. And then you pledge to work with the president and with that side of the political divide. What does that mean? Are we reading too much into this? Was this bad manners, or is this the way things should work after an election, Linus?
I think we aspire sometimes to higher standards than we actually capable as a country, because for a long time now, it has become evident that we have very weak party structures. Our party structures are totally weak. Even when you're talking of whipping towards what? Because our party politics are centered around the leaders. So if you're looking at UDA, you're looking at President Ruto. If you're looking at Azimio ODM, you're looking at Raila Odinga. Azimio Wiper, you're looking at Kalonzo Musyoka. We have parties that revolve and evolve around the leaders. Now, when you look again, since we came up with this multi-party system in 1992, at the mark of the 6th month, in 1993, for example, we had the first defection in Apili Wawire from Western Kenya defecting, and then there was Protas Momanyi as well defecting in the other election. Because defections are part of our politics. But in the past, the laws worked a bit more strictly in such a way that if you are defecting, if you're changing your allegiance from the party that on which you were elected, then you have to seek a fresh mandate. Yes. Now, lately, these days, the landscape is not clear. You have members of parliament who were elected on the ticket of one party, but then their allegiance is on the other. Again, it just points to the weaknesses in the base of what we call our party politics. Now, is it why the State House meetings? State House meetings are basically about the president also shoring up his base to make sure that the legislative agenda he takes to Parliament doesn't get a rough time. Yeah. That has been the culture of every president, basically. The desire to control Parliament way back from the 60s, when Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga ensured that KADU wound up and joined KANU. So this is part of our culture. And there's something we have not recovered from. We have not recovered from the single-party mentality. The country still has that culture where, you know, the president holds the knife and the arm. So it depends on how you behave, and you will get goodies. There's something that is also another lie that we use and we hear a lot, that we are going to the president for development. Few mention ever the space of personal fortune in this culture of defections. Because don't look at a politician going to State House and you think he's doing it for his people. How many of them come out of State House and give an account of what they have now gotten? Very, very few. Defections can be rewarding at a personal level. And this we know from history, especially from generous leaders like the times of President Daniel Arap Moi. You defect and your personal fortune can change. If you don't get re-elected, then you can be appointed something else, and that used to happen. So there is something very selfish also about defections. And the final thing I should say, the breakfast that took place of the Jubilee MPs and then followed by the ODM MPs comes smack in the middle of a fight between Raila Odinga against and Azimio against President William Ruto. Yeah. Just a few weeks ago, they withdrew recognition of this government. So, and there are a series of rallies that are being held across the country. So you wouldn't want to see your troops going off the line, and that's what he's seeing. 9, and then before that 30. So what is the impact of this breakfasts on the rallies? And we also know that meals at State House are very, very consequential. Going back to the days of Martin Shikuku, when they said he went to have ugali with President Moi. So meals, whether it's tea or ugali, or I don't know whether they serve mursik now in the Ruto State House. Yeah. Any of that shared is politically consequential. It's a big symbol of political political messaging. So and that is why you saw the bitterness at Estonia today, because it's directly linked to what is the impact of the Jalangos, these other 9, going to State House on the rallies that are going to take place tomorrow, yes, Saturday, Sunday, all the way to Monday, because they are in the middle of this contest that Raila Odinga has opened with Ruto. Finally, are politicians looking beyond 2023? Are they looking at 2027? Raila Odinga lost the election in 2022. Yeah. Will he be in the ballot in 2027? Or is it worth, in any way? Or influential in any way? Yeah. Is it worth investing there, or should I invest elsewhere in a younger politician like William Ruto? Yeah. All these things are happening right now in the political scene. Yeah,
that's right. I'm coming to you, Francis, because I want to know about the numbers that Elinas has mentioned. But there's a tweet here which talks about what you're saying, from Kiberenge Jr., who says, you can't be in an Azimio rally on Sunday shouting Ruto must go, and then on Wednesday at State House telling Ruto tutafanya kazi pamoja na tutaki maandamano, then Thursday in an Azimio MPs meeting to plan how Ruto must go. There is no such kind of democracy. So political masterstroke, perhaps on the part of President William Ruto, unaweka maji before that fire even, sort of starts to pick up steam. But, I also wanted to talk to you about what this would mean in terms of the legislative agenda in Parliament, which, by the way, resumes next week on Tuesday.
Oh, yes.
What would these 30-odd numbers mean for the Kenya Kwanza coalition in the National Assembly, perhaps in the Senate? I mean, they're already a majority, but, more numbers are certainly welcome, right?
Absolutely. And I'm sure across the table we are familiar with this word, poaching. This is exactly what is happening.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
This is basically poaching, political poaching. And it's not something new. You remember, even in the previous administration, the Jubilee team, Aisha Jumwa, Suleiman Dori,
yes,
they were ODM members of Parliament who are poached, and even an attempt to expel them from the party did not materialize for the entire period of 5 years. Yeah. Actually, Aisha ended up being a commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Yes, powerful. And look at her now. So you
remember the process of frustrating any attempt to expel them from the party. Yeah. Even the nominated members of Jubilee then, who moved or shifted their allegiance from President Uhuru Kenyatta then to Deputy President William Ruto, now President. You remember even the attempt to expel them, how that process ended. Yeah. It is very difficult because much as the Political Parties Act tells you, you cannot pledge allegiance to more than one political party at the same time, or you cannot belong to more than one political party at the same time, or you cannot participate in the establishment of another political party while a member of one political party. On paper, it sounds very strong, but you know the process of dealing with it. Actually, the working word there is dim. Yes. So who dims? How much of
when
this
is it
dimming
deemed?
Is sufficient? Yeah. Because you will start from the political parties tribunal, go to the High Court, go to the Court of Appeal, go to the Supreme Court. By that time, 5 years are over. And especially if the poaching is being done by the ruling party that has the president, it will become very difficult because this party has resources, has the logistics, it has the machinery and the muscle. So it will totally frustrate you. And you would probably understand where the Azimio team is coming from. You say you don't recognize President William Ruto. And members of your party are having tea with him, not anywhere else but State House, the seat of the president. So essentially it negates the very non-recognition, number one. Number two, I think politics 101 dictate that weaken your opponent consolidate your numbers.
Yes.
So what you see President William Ruto do now is to consolidate his numbers, not just for now, but even for parliamentary proceedings and parliamentary activities and business that will be going on for the next 5 years. And finally, in preparation for the next election in 2027.
Yeah.
So nothing strange. Now the question is, will there be any consequences for the 9 MPs? I've seen a letter.
There's a letter from Edwin Sifuna, the Secretary General, says, my office is in receipt of your letter whose contents we acknowledge. Internal mechanisms have been initiated with a view of processing it for action by the relevant party organs in accordance with the party constitution and any other relevant law. And this is with respect to the deregistration and or expulsion of Tomo Jenda, Gideon Ochanda, Karoli Omondi, Elisha Odhiambo, Paul Abor, Mark Nyamita, Felix Jalango from the ODM party membership.
That is the issue. So what is the next step? Will there be proceedings to suspend them or to expel them? Of course, this has to go through a disciplinary committee. Yep. And you must actually show that you give them an opportunity to go through the process. And it's a process that will take a long time. Actually, you will struggle to remember anyone since the political parties system that we are talking about now. Anybody who has been expelled successfully for associating with another political party, you will struggle to get those numbers. But be it as it may, look at the 32 members of the Jubilee Party. You remember? Initially, it was those from the Mount Kenya region who first met the deputy president, then the president. And then now the net was cast wider to accommodate even leaders who were elected on a Jubilee ticket from other parts. I will not be surprised. I will not be surprised. On Sunday, this Sunday, in Nakuru, because there's a prayer rally, I will not be surprised if those MPs attend that prayer rally and probably are received formally into Kenya Kwanza. I will not be surprised at all.
A quick one, Francis, before we conclude. So what does this mean for their numbers in the National Assembly? Kenya Kwanza has what, 180?
About 189 onwards.
If you add
these ones, if that is the situation, then the Kenya Kwanza numbers will be heading in the north of 200 and something. Remember, last year, the president sent his proposals on how to amend the constitution, or in the areas that probably he would want amended in the constitution. The reintroduction of the official leader of opposition, the two-third gender principle question, of course, reintroduction of the cabinet ministers' question time. Though that one requires a bit of adjusting the standing orders. But primarily the opposition leader and the two-thirds gender principle will require a majority of the House.
He has a budget coming up, his first one.
Yeah, and the supermajority in this case is 233. So I think that is the idea. Get as many numbers towards achieving the 233 number. Remember, there's a budget coming up, there's a supplementary budget coming up, very legislation. So you want an easy time in Parliament. But I think sometimes it's a misnomer, because ordinarily Parliament, the way it's structured, should not be opposition government, because Parliament should be playing that role. Representation, oversight, legislation. So I think we are still a long way to go in terms of achieving a pure democracy as one would look at it. We're still having a democracy based on circumstances of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamila?
Not funge.
Tell us.
Nyumbani.
Tell us first of all to go home. Are we done?
Please, you're done.
Can we leave now?
Ile imebakia